This is the Sports Porch, Black and Gold, with your hosts, the Technical Director, the Grand Schwabini, and Hockey Jesus. Come on, Pittsburgh. Let's show a little Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates love. The Sports Porch Black and Gold starts now.
Hey, welcome to the Sports Porch. As you can tell, tonight we are without our technical director. What are we going to do, boys? What are we going to do?
You know, so far so good. No issues.
It's like we don't really even need a technical director, do we? Yeah, TD's feeling a little under the weather, so we're giving him the night off, and we brought in the counselor. Scott, welcome to the porch.
Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
Scott is a very good friend of mine. We've grown up together with the stories we could tell, not just about sports. How about it, Scotty?
Yeah, not just about the sports and stick shifters and all sorts of anyway. We'll keep it clean, guys. We'll keep it clean.
Okay.
Tonight we're gonna do a little postseason analysis on our Steelers. That's the first thing we're gonna get into, and then after that, since Scotty's a huge hockey fan like myself, we're definitely going to get into a little bit of analysis about the Four Nations face-off. Schwaber, you been watching the Four Nations stuff?
I did watch the USA-Canada game.
Oh, yeah. So classic.
Yeah, sure.
We'll get into that for sure. Hopefully everybody's out there at least catching a little bit of this because it's really, really, really an incredible tournament going on. And I don't know. I don't really have much on the Bucko front, but if you guys feel like jumping in on the Buccos, we'll throw that in before we get to what we watching. Sound good, boys?
Sounds good.
All right. So
nobody had to have surgery today. They reported, and I guess it was veterans on the field. So I guess as long as nobody had to have surgery today, we're good.
Well, I guess as long as nobody's pushing any sleds down there in Bradenton, I think we'll be all right. What do you think? I think they probably got a better physical director than the Steelers. Maybe one advantage that the Pirates have over the Steelers, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So, boys, I texted you out what I want to be talking about tonight, and first thing is. Of course, the technical director's texting me and telling me how terrible I sound. So, okay, we'll work on that.
I thought he was napping.
He can't stop himself. He can't decide if he's tired or wants to technical direct from afar. Anyway, we'll work on the technical stuff. But before I fix my microphone so that the technical director is happy. Let's talk about Steeler game balls for last year. I want your guys' take on your offensive, defensive, and if you want to get into the special teams. I think we all know who our special teams guys are going to be, maybe. But let's start with the offense. Since you're our guest tonight, Scott, let's go with you. Who would you give who would be your game ball you would give to for the 2024 season for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, no question. Stevie, you knew this. I'm going with the lineman, Zach Frazier, all the way. I think he gave up one sack. So we'll call him one sack Zach, as opposed to our tackles who gave up the most sacks of any tackle pair in the NFL. So hands down, Zach Frazier. As you know, I've never really recovered from the Steelers not drafting Creed Humphrey and taking some tight end that they signed to an extension who occasionally catches more than two passes, but whatever. They finally found their center.
Of course you're going to go with the center. I'm surprised you didn't go with one of the tackles, to be honest with you. Why do you decide to go with the center?
Well, I think Frazier just showed out, and again, from what the stats tell you, if you look at Pro Football Reference or Pro Football Focus, I think he gave up one sack. I think Dan Moore gave up, 9 or something like that. The other guy, whether he's a bust or not, we don't know, but I think he gave up even more than that. So Hands down there. Pushing the pile on the run too. I think that the history of centers for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think you need to have an anchor there, even though, all the scouts would tell you that position's been devalued a little bit. I think to get him in the second round still was a great pick.
Okay. So I believe Mark is not going to go with the center position.
Believe it or not, I actually did have Zach Frazier as my number one.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm glad I asked you guys to pick more than one. So who was your number two?
I did. Now, I don't foresee my number two being on either of your top threes, but I kept it on the line and I went with Isaac Sayamala. I just think that I just think he's a really solid lineman, a solid guard. I think that he, when he was with Philadelphia, he, played right next to Jason Kelce and formed like a really good tandem. And I felt like he formed a really good tandem with Zach. And, if you think about it, like very rarely can you recall when Sayamala makes a bad play.
That's true.
Maybe once in a blue moon, he's offsides, barely ever gets a holding call, and a lot of times when you see a good run play, he might be pulling out there and getting a good block downfield. So, I just think he's a really solid player. To me, he's kind of like maybe like a notch below a Pro Bowl level, but I think he's not too far off of that level. So I gave it to Isaac for my number two guy.
All right, both of you guys going with the offense. I'm kind of surprised by that, to be honest with you. I didn't expect it. Well, maybe I guess I expect the offensive guy from Scotty, but I'm actually going on the offense. I'm actually going on the defensive side, and I'm only picking this guy because I was so hard on this signing at the beginning of the year. I think Cam Hayward had a.
Wait a minute. So you're not giving us an offensive player of the year?
Is this your overall player of the year?
You're right. I jumped to defense. Okay, I'll go back to offense, and you guys aren't going to like where I'm going to go, but I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. And here's why I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. I'm going with Russell Wilson because he came into this offense not knowing anything about it. Okay. And I think, getting off to the start he did, missing the first 6 games and then rattling off those games in a row after that. I think you got to give him a game ball just for doing that. Now, did he take us to the promised land? No. Did he perform in some pretty incredible situations? And did he finally bring some offense back to the Steelers? Remember, the Steelers only threw like 20 touchdown passes the previous 2 years. So I think that alone, bringing some of the offense back to the Steelers, I'm going to give it to Russell Wilson. Now, do I think that they should re-sign him? That's a different conversation, okay? But I just do believe that Russell Wilson needs to get some love. What do you guys think about that, Russell Wilson?
Well, Amy Mayschwab says groan for Steve's Russell Wilson call.
Yeah, I think the real issue, Steve, is based on Jerry Dulac's reporting, and we know Dulac is, the most plugged in of all the reporters for the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Based on Dulac's reporting, there's a big question of the freedom that Wilson had to play in those 5 losses. And to me, it's inexplicable how you come off that Cincinnati win and, you don't beat Cincinnati the same way. I mean, I don't want to revisit that. I know you guys talked about it.
Well, no, let's revisit that because I think that's actually fuel for my fire because if you believe the reports that after the Cincinnati game, there was some infighting between the quarterback and the offensive coordinator, and the offensive coordinator wasn't very happy with the way Russell Wilson just kind of chucked it and scored a lot of points. He wanted to play within the system. And as you can see, the next time they play Cincinnati, that didn't work out too well. So I actually think that's fuel for Russell Wilson being maybe more important than Arthur Smith.
I actually think on the offensive side of the ball, what I found kind of troubling about the exercise was that you typically
all the running.
Well, no, you typically think about the skill positions when you think about who's the best player: a wide receiver, a running back, a quarterback, a tight end. And I really couldn't come up with a skill position player that I thought was worthy. I mean, now I would say that Pickens is the one who's got talent to be that guy.
Right.
But as we know, he didn't maximize his talent last year. Far from it.
Yeah, and let's face it, he's just a receiver, so he can't really drive the offense unless he's throwing the ball.
Yeah, I think to your point, Steve, I think the bottom line is with what he had, I don't think he played that badly. I mean, I really struggle with the Cincinnati to Cincinnati game comparison. It's one thing to lose to that, that run. I mean, the NFL, shame on Roger Goodell, like the NFL scheduling the Steelers those 3 games in 11 days. Yeah. There's nobody in the league that this year had to run a gauntlet in a schedule like that. And
well, I mean, what are my other choices? You guys took two of the best offensive linemen, right? Who am I going to take? Freiermuth? Am I going to take Najee? I mean, I think somebody said in the notes, I think, let me show it here. Marvin said that Warren, what does he say? Warren got run over in a game.
No, I think he's saying that he didn't like my guard pick.
Oh, okay. Because Warren got run over. I don't know. I think the guard pick's okay, but I mean that's because we're not repeating picks here. I think
right.
I think Russell Wilson's probably who else would you have taken in that third spot? Out of curiosity. There's nobody else to pick.
Yeah, there's nobody else there.
I mean, I agree with you, Mark. I think Pickens is definitely the talent for sure. But all right, let's see. Any other?
We'll let you.
By the way, Marvin likes your center pick. So Marvin's in on the center position.
We'll let you start with defense since you already announced Cam.
I already announced Cam, yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong on the defensive position. The defensive position, I'm going with Cam. I lambasted the Steelers for extending him in the postseason, and I still think maybe for the terms of the contract, it might not be very good. And that's pretty much what I was going for when I was doing the crush on that. But honestly, he had one of his best seasons last year. I know he faded towards the end, but you could tell whenever the opposition could run the ball, it was because Cam wasn't in there. And when he was in there, he was absolutely stuffing the run. And he actually got after the quarterback up the middle pretty good last year, I thought. So for that reason, Cam Hayward is definitely getting my ball for defensive player of the year for the Steelers.
I'll tell you what, I was looking at some of the stats, trying to think about who I would select. Cam Hayward had 11 pass defenses. I mean, that's amazing. I mean,
he had 3 in one game.
Batting down 11 balls. I mean, usually when somebody's pretty good at it, it's like 5 for the year.
Yeah, 11 is a lot.
He had 3 in one game, man.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, he had a great year. Really good year.
How about you, Mark? Where are you going?
Well, so I had Cam Hayward as my number 2. And you guys might be surprised by the guy that I put in the 1 slot because it's not the obvious one.
I hope it wasn't Minka.
Oh, no. I am not a fan of his mediocrity. I chose Deshaun Elliott.
Interesting.
I agree with that.
I thought he had a really good season. He had 108 tackles last year. 73 of them were solo, which is hard to do.
Yeah.
He had 5 tackles for a loss. He had an interception. He had 6 passes defended. He forced 2 fumbles and recovered 3. So I think he was kind of all over the place. And I'll tell you what, in that gauntlet, I believe he missed like 2 games in that gauntlet, or maybe 3.
He did.
He
was
did.
really missed in the Philadelphia game.
Yeah, absolutely. He did miss the first 2 of those. Yeah.
He was sorely missed. I think he had a really big impact on that defense, and without him in there kind of shoring up the back end, I think the team really suffered as a result. So he's kind of like a combination for me of sort of rising star, kind of unexpected, excellent, maybe heading towards a future Pro Bowl. I was just really impressed with him this year.
Hey, Scott, do you know if he signed for next year, Elliott?
Yeah, he signed 2 years. And, for me, Mark, the piece that you didn't mention, he makes $2.5 million a year. He signed a $5 million 2-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
when you look at the fact that,
yeah.
he's making like an eighth of what Minkah is, it's pretty ridiculous. But I was really surprised at his ability to come down. I mean, I don't really remember him watching him that much. I think he played mostly for Miami. I don't know that he's ever going to be a Pro Bowler. I think he's 28 or 29 at this point, but definitely serviceable, to come downhill and to sort of fill that void and run support. Which really surprises me, as effective as he was, that they didn't allow Minkah to roam a little bit more. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I'm not ready to say Minkah's mediocre, but I don't know that they're deploying him effectively, and he's not making the plays that he did when he was a young guy.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's on the backside of his career for sure, but I also agree with Mark. I think he had a great year, and I think that's an excellent pick. Knowing that I took, and I'm surprised you had him ranked 1, but I can see why after you said that. Let me just show some of these here. Chris Chata wants to talk about Trevor Lawrence. We'll get to Trevor Lawrence here in a second. We're going to give our game balls out first, then we're going to talk about what some of the things the Steelers need to do in the postseason. Marvin actually said that he would give Jaylen Warren a game ball. He liked his play this year, and Marvin also likes your pick for Deshaun Elliott. All right, Scotty, what do you got?
Yeah, I think Peyton Wilson's a guy that definitely punched above his weight. That interception he made, that high pointed that ball, that was a ridiculous big time play. And I think he got close to 50% of the snaps. Interestingly enough, the knock on him is the injury history.
Right.
So he was a guy that I think was, one of those that they say first round talent potentially, but dropped all the way down. And, because of that injury history, I thought he played great. He was good in pass support, and, in some ways, I mean, he was outshining, his running mate that was out there with him, who, signed for the biggest deal,
big bucks. Yeah.
Big deal in team history. And so, I think Landon Roberts saw his snaps lower than what it was the first year. Obviously, Roberts was playing after, we had 3 linebackers go down too, but Peyton Wilson, I thought, was solid, and hopefully he can stay healthy.
Yeah, he's going to be a tough guy going forward. I think you're right. His size and the way he plays with all that speed and especially being up the middle, I think it opens him up to injuries. You're going to say something, Mark?
Yeah, I think we still have to give a honorable mention to TJ Watt. Now, I think that to me, TJ Watt's season did not end well. It seemed like he didn't really show up as much in those last games. Although I felt he played the run pretty well in those last few games. My guess, I mean, I just have to believe that he was playing hurt,
or he got tired. Either way, I agree with you.
It's something like that, because think about it. I mean, if you really basically say he didn't have much production in the last 4 or 5 games of the season. Yeah. I mean, he still had 11 and a half sacks, 4 pass defense, 6 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. I mean, so he's causing more mayhem than anybody on the team still, and we felt he had a bad year.
Yeah, I agree with that. My honorable mention would go to Beanie Bishop. I think Beans had a pretty good year for being an undersized. I don't know if he's a linebacker or whatever he is playing that dime position. I thought he had a pretty good year for somebody who came out of nowhere and really wasn't expected to do anything. I thought he was a little bit of a surprise. You got any honorable mentions on the D side, Scotty?
Yeah, I like Bishop's play, and that slot corner's been pretty weak really since Mike Hilton left the team, and similar profile to Hilton. He's undersized, as you said, also undrafted like Hilton, so maybe he can develop into something. And I just the guy has a knack for the ball. I remember Mark saying Beanie Bishop will not have another interception. I specifically remember that one.
He only had one more, didn't he?
Yeah, it's all good, but yeah, not a lot, and certainly some disappointments there too. Obviously, Porter had a challenging year. I think was good at times, was okay at times, and other times questionable. And Benton didn't take the jump that was expected of him too. And I know there's a lot of talk about whether Benton is really big enough to man the middle. And he was getting pushed around a little bit at times. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think as far as disappointments go, I think, you got to put Minka up there pretty high. And also, them bringing back Cam Sutton, he was an absolute bust. He was absolutely useless. And they held him on for that whole suspension too, hoping he would come back and play well. And he was just garbage. So I think those are the things that kept them from being an elite defense. The fact that JP Jr. didn't take the next step up and TJ Watt didn't have this typical, 15, 16 sack year and kind of fell at the end. I agree. I think Marvin put it this way. They were tired from playing so many games that 11 days, 3 games. We all looked at that on the schedule, and we knew that was going to be the rough spot. But an elite team knows how to get through that by winning at least one of those 3. I mean, even 2, if you're really good, like Kansas City and Baltimore did. They played about the same time frame, and they won all 3, and we lost all 3. So I think that was the big difference.
I think another big point for the D too. You guys, I'm sure, heard Julian Edelman's comments that were sort of picked up in the Twitter sphere in a big way about the Steelers being predictable, and this discussion about not having TJ and Highsmith flip sides or move TJ around. I mean, I'd like to see TJ used a little bit more like Micah Parsons. I mean, put him right over the center sometimes. I mean, send him up the A gap once in a while. I just I don't understand. And and Amy just highlighted the position coaches. I mean, I'll just say what I've said for years, which is, where the hell's Mike Tomlin's coaching tree? I mean, the answer is he doesn't have one. But in reality, I think we need to ask the question of whether the offense and the defense are too predictable, because more and more former players are saying that.
Well, see, that's why Amy's our number 1 fan, because
right.
she knows exactly what she's talking about. We all agree with those comments. All right, that only leaves the special teams, boys. So there's little to choose from here. So choose wisely. I
actually think that there is plenty to choose.
Oh, well, good. Then you can go last. We'll let Scott go
last.
Yeah, I love Skoranek. I'm a big fan. I think
not even in my top 3.
I think from a gunner standpoint, I mean, the hilarious thing is, I think the first game he played the following week at his press conference, Tomlin referred to him as that other gunner. Didn't even remember his name, but he was just a force. I think he forced 2 fumbles. He was always downfield, and and the guy's serviceable. I think when Pickens was out, there was a game that he caught a pretty meaningful, third down. It was 3rd and long. I think 3rd and 9. They hit him for 22 yards across the middle. He actually made a nice play on the ball. So I like Skronik a lot, and he was interviewed, and they asked him, and the DVE guys were talking about this on the morning show. They asked him what position he played, and he said, "I'm a football player." And they're like, well, don't you play wide receiver? Well, I asked coach if I could play defense too. I'm a football player.
He wants to be the next Deion
Yeah,
Sanders.
I mean, anyway.
No, that's good. That actually I didn't think about it. Well, I'm going to go with the obvious. I'm going to go with Boz. Clearly, kicking as many field goals as he did, he was instrumental in, keeping the offense on the scoreboard whenever they couldn't score touchdowns. Did he set the record for field goals in a year? I think he did last year.
He missed it by one.
Oh, he missed it by one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know he was on pace for a while there, and then they had to go start scoring touchdowns or not scoring at all. So that probably derailed him a little bit. But clearly, I mean, now that Justin Tucker looks like he's probably going to end up in a penitentiary somewhere, he's probably going to be the number one kicker moving forward. So
do we know if Boz has a line of massage therapists he's been to?
Let's hope not.
I didn't see him at the one I was at this afternoon. I mean, I don't think so.
If I'm an NFL player, I'm not getting any massages.
Yeah, I think there's this idea of a private massage. I think maybe they need to pay up and at least get it done at home. Come on, boys. Like these and it's like ridiculous. Like, do these guys think they're not gonna get like called out for this? It's just ridiculous, unbelievable. But that's good. Anytime the Baltimoreans are in the news in a negative way, I'm happy to highlight it here on the porch. All right, Scott, Mark, you got the last one. Since you got 3 or 4, heck, give them all to us.
Well, I think the obvious one is Miles Killebrew, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, Miles, definitely. He was on my list for sure.
Since he's in the Pro Bowl. But the one that I put Miles at number 3. The one I put at number 2, you guys may disagree with this, but I got one of the Schwab favorites, CA3. Do you know who CA3 is?
Yes, I do know.
Calvin Austin III. Look, here's the bottom line. I think that every time a team goes to punt the ball to CA3, there's a chance he could take it to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a touchdown last year. No, look, granted, I understand it was just one touchdown, a nice 73-yarder. But he did average, 10.3 yards per punt return, which is pretty solid. And really, this is really his first, let's say, full season being the full-time punt returner. Right. I look for good things to continue with CA3 being kind of like a nice little, third receiver and special teamer. I think he's always got a chance to break one, and you don't have to worry about having like one of your very best players back there either.
Yeah, that's an excellent one. I wasn't thinking of the return team, but they were very good early on in the season, even midway through. I was actually thinking about the punter. I can't remember his name, but I know he was pretty good for us this year.
Well, he was much better than the previous punter.
Waitman, yeah, right. And they had that because our other punter got injured, right? Did they pick him up, Waitman?
Like third play of the game, yeah.
Yeah, right. So,
Scott, are you not a CA3 fan? You seem
I love the kid. He's from Memphis. I used to spend a shit ton of time in Memphis, and I love him. He's undersized. He's fast as hell. He's a track star. I think, there, you what you see is what you get. He's freaking Speedy Gonzalez out there.
And he doesn't shy away from getting hit either.
No. How many touchdowns did he catch this year? 3, maybe. A couple of those he went down the, I think 2 of those he went down the deep middle.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think maybe a sign of our previous conversation about who we could really, say legitimately could claim like an MVP or, type on the offense. Like remember Russell Wilson had to throw to him on a Hail Mary pass. He was triple teamed. And it's like, hey, if you're throwing to the guy who's 5'7", at the last play of the game, I mean, that kind of says, you maybe that leads into the conversation about what the Steelers should draft or go after in free agency, Steve.
You're reading my mind, but before we get there, I just want to thank you for joining us here on the porch tonight. We're all over the whole entire world. That's right. We're worldwide now. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're really not on LinkedIn much anymore, but
No.
we're expanding our TikToks. We hope you're loving those shorts out there. So we just want to thank you. And if you like what you're hearing, if you already haven't, smash that subscribe button down at the bottom. We love the fact that you're here tonight. If you got anything to say, just throw them in the comments. We're happy to comment on them with you. But for now, let's do it. Let's move on. Let's double team this. Let's go at it together. There are two. The next two topics are, what positions should the Steelers target in the draft, and who do you think they should go after in the free agency? I'm just going to combine it all together. I don't want to do this separate. I just want to. I want to hear your thoughts on targeting in the draft and maybe who they should get after in free agency. What do you think, Scott?
So the Steelers need 2 wide receivers, 2 defensive linemen, and a cornerback. So, everything that I've read, and I try not to pay too much attention to the mock drafts, but I do like looking at sort of rankings and tiers. And supposedly, unlike last year's draft, this draft is supposed to be loaded with defensive linemen. So presumably, you might want to go after a wide receiver in free agency and maybe pick the wide receiver in the first round, because unlike last year, this is not, as I read it, I'm not a scout, obviously, a deep class for the wide receiver. So I think you have to think about what you can get on the market. We have a date that's coming up pretty closely here before the new league year.
Right.
A lot of these guys have contracts that are tied to bonuses.
Right.
Even some of the receivers, I think Debo is one that have been, linked to the Steelers in some way. I think Cooper Kupp might also have some kind of bonus coming up in March, just before the league year. So, to me, you have to get a D lineman in this class. If it's not at the top of the class, it has to be the second pick. And I think you need a corner too, although I'm not gonna jack on Corey Trice for what he did against, or what he didn't do against Jamar Chase, because it's Jamar Chase.
Right.
I think Corey Trice, has real potential, but to me, we saw, Porter. I mean, maybe Porter's not good enough that he can be that elite guy, that you don't need somebody who's really, really good. I mean, you can't obviously invest at every position, which, brings us back to whether Minka, can be justified making $20 million next season. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are all good positions. So you covered both free agency and the draft. Well done. How about you, Mark?
Well, okay. So what I got here is for the draft, what I would do if I were the Steelers is, with the first pick in the first round, I would take either, if the wide receiver that I like is available, I'd take the wide receiver. If the wide receiver, if my number one option that I'm zeroing in on isn't there, I might take the best defensive tackle that's available. Because I do think you need to plan for after Cam. I think you
need to plan for with Cam.
Yeah.
With Cam.
Well, I think both of them playing together.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And I also think I'd like to see them draft a running back in the second round. You can get a lot of really good running backs in the second round. I think I wouldn't say first round, because I think that's unless it's a surefire, no doubt about it, like a Saquon Barkley or like a Jahmyr Gibbs or somebody like that. outside of that, you can get really good running backs in the second round. I mean, I believe the Eagles got Shady McCoy in the second round. You know, I mean, Alvin Kamara was a third round back. I mean, there's a lot of good running backs out there, and I don't think you need to spend a first round pick on one. I wouldn't bring Najee back.
Yeah, Mark, I think you should listen to the Freakonomics podcast from last week. They went through economically why the value of the running back is so low now. And it just because it's a pass league, it just doesn't make sense. And the fact that attrition rates on running backs are, you know, most of them don't meet, you know, their 27th birthday in the league. So I just, if the Steelers take a running back in the first or second round that's not Genty, I think, you know, he's the one, you know, generational talent.
He's gonna go early. He's
gonna go in the first round.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's gonna take him in the first
round. But
look,
they reached with Najee, and you know, as I texted Steve, Mark, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, you can't miss, you know, 3 out of 5 years on your number one pick in the NFL, and that's what the Steelers have done the last 5 years. Right. They've missed in a big way on 3 of the 5 number ones for the last 5 years. So I just I might burn my seat license and give my tickets back to the Steelers if they take a running back in the first or second round.
But you'll miss the chance to go to Ireland.
Yeah. Well, see, I kind of look at the second round as that's the right place to take one. You know, that's the way I see it. I sort of look at it like this. Like I feel like, you know, now obviously you can get a great player in any round, right? But, you know, whoever you're picking in the first round should be hopefully a star player, right?
Starter.
Yeah. Second round should be somebody that, you know, if it's a good pick, you look back later and you say, how did we get them in the second round? Yeah. You know, as if they should have been a first rounder.
Yeah, second round guys should be a 10-year starter.
Yeah, but when you get
your
to
first rounder should be borderline, if not all pro.
Yeah, but when you get to the third round, that's where you start getting dicey. So that's why I'm saying I want them to pick a running back in the second round, because I don't want them picking just like, the 13th best running back they think that's out there. I want them picking like, the 6th or 7th best running back that's out there who might be better than that ranking. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. But anyway, I digress. As far as the free agency, I would go, I think they need to get like a solid swing tackle in free agency, offensive line, offensive tackle.
Interesting.
Because, look, I think we all hope that Broderick Jones, lives up to his billing, and hopefully they move him to the left side and all that.
Well, you got Fatano coming back next year too.
Sure, you got Fatano coming back. But look, I sort of feel like we need a backup plan. You got Fatano was injured. Broderick Jones hasn't lived up to it. So we need a good backup plan. So we need one of those guys like I'm sure that there is a guy who, for example, wasn't a starter last year, but he came in and he played either right or left tackle, and he was incredible for the rest of the year. You can get somebody like that, like at a fairly reasonable price, who could fill in and be a good starter for you if things go south at one of those positions.
Well, the Eagles have a 7th rounder playing tackle.
Well, that is true, but look, that's a really fortunate result.
It helps when you have an offensive line coach who can. It's
coaching too.
Yep, who can bring that out.
I mean, the Steelers got that out of Calvin Beachum not that long ago, and I think that's when Mike Munchak was the offensive line coach.
It was Villanueva was like that as well, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, he was a late pick. Yeah.
Yep. I also think they could use another tight end. The Washington guy, okay, he's a monster. He can sort of catch the ball. He can block. I don't know. I mean, I need somebody else other than Freiermuth, because I feel like if Freiermuth is hurt, look, it's
you're lucky the technical director's not here right now.
Yeah, but Ideally,
man
it would be
correction.
nice. Ideally, it would be nice if they actually found somebody who becomes better than Freiermuth.
Yeah.
And I also think, just like obviously you're looking for, a linebacker probably in free agency.
Yeah.
Looking for a corner either in free agency or in the draft. Maybe like 4th round in the draft, something like that. So the reality is they've got a lot of holes to fill.
Yeah, and guys, you missed the number one, which is my first thing that I like to talk about, and it seems like everybody else here wants to talk about it too. Rumors about trading for Trevor Lawrence is out there. Are we going to sign Justin Fields? Is Russ coming back? What's going on? We don't have a signed quarterback right now, boys. That's a problem. That's a problem. Yeah. And, I've been thinking about this a little bit. And I've been thinking about teams that do well in the offseason. They already have their offensive coordinator together. They already know who the starting quarterback's going to be. They've already started planning for next year. The Steelers can't do any of that without a quarterback. They got to figure out this quarterback position. And I'm not going to address the Trevor Lawrence stuff because it was debunked today. I saw an interview with Trevor Lawrence who said, I think my agent called up what's his name, the Sports Illustrated guy, and just kind of threw it out there, basically saying nobody called for Trevor Lawrence. It's such crap. It's basically, that Jacksonville just crushing that right away, saying we're not trading Trevor Lawrence. That was never going to happen. First of all, second of all, the Steelers do absolutely need to make a decision about what's going on with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, because I don't see them I agree with you. I don't think this quarterback field is worth going after. I don't think it's worth trading up to go get somebody. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to have to do something. And for me, I think you just need to, as much as this maybe pains me a little bit, I think you just need to sign Justin Fields, get this offense going with whatever he's going to be, whether he's going to be good or not, I don't care. But they've got a better chance of it working better if they can get him and Arthur Smith in a room tomorrow and say, you're our guy. Let's create an offense for you that's going to work for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I get the sense that the Steelers aren't interested in doing that because either they want to save some money or they're not sure of the terms they want to give. But that's to me the number one position that they have to address. And I think that's I'm saying they should just address it by keeping who they have here. I agree with you guys. I love the idea of drafting a wide receiver in the first round. That Golden from Texas, he's the number one. He's the number one wide receiver on the board, and pretty much they do have him dropping the Steelers some of the time. I would love to get him. I think he's a great talent. Honestly, I would rather them wait to get the Smith guy from Ohio State because I think he's going to be a Justin Jefferson type talent. But hey, go after him next year. Tank and get him next year because he's probably going to be out for the draft next year. If he's even going to play for Ohio State, who knows with the nil where that guy's going to play next year. But I think they go get a good wide receiver. We haven't even talked about, whether they should re-sign Pickens. I say we keep that for next week. Next week, let's talk about, who maybe they should keep and maybe who they should pitch. But, and I agree with you. I think that defensive line is another place where they've got to score a home run. I'm hoping they can do that in the second round. And I'm not against getting another cornerback. Although I think JP Jr. is going to have a better year next year. That's just me hoping and wishing, not necessarily knowing for sure. So, and you're right about the running back position, but I think they can I actually think they can get a running back in the free agency. I think there's somebody out there who will fit right in with Jaylen Warren, and, they won't have to pay too much. And I agree. I think at this point, you just don't re-sign Najee because they probably sign him for too much money at this point. Just get somebody out there for, I don't know, maybe 3 years at $2 million a year or something like that. And plop him back there with Jaylen Warren. That would be what I do. Any final thoughts on the Steelers before we move on?
Yeah, I just say, I would just reiterate, you got to go for value. To your point on the running back, you look around the league, there are a lot of serviceable running backs that are third or fourth rounders in today's NFL or in the draft. I think if they don't go some combination of D-line and wide receiver and 1-2, and then, look for a corner, maybe even trade up, because corner again is a premium position that you're going to overpay on free agency. And we already have a bloated, overpaid defense. We can't put any more money into the defense.
I agree. Any final thoughts there, Schwaber?
No, I agree with you though, that I do think the biggest problem right now is they do not know who the quarterback is.
Phew, man, that's brutal.
That's a big problem.
There's nobody's. You don't have a signed quarterback in the NFL. The number one position, the position that means the most, and the Steelers are just kind of ignoring it right now.
Yeah.
Hey, we would be.
Hey, Mr. Rooney says he doesn't need to change a thing.
Yeah.
I agree with you that probably the best bet with what is looking realistic right now is probably Justin Fields.
Here's an interesting point by Mr. Klein. He likes Taysom Hill. He thinks he thinks Taysom Hill will be available. What do you think about Taysom Hill?
No.
He's not a quarterback.
He's a gadget player.
He's the gadget guy, right?
He's
Cordell Stewart Light.
I mean, Duck Hodges,
he's better than Duck Hodges.
Yeah, he is better than Dutch. Better than the Duck, that's for sure.
Although one name we did that has been thrown around a little bit. What are your guys' thoughts on Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I just go back to the comments that Tomlin made that he sees the future of the running back position or the quarterback position as somebody who can run and pass. That is not Aaron Rodgers. So I don't think they're going to go after him.
Deshaun Elliott tweeted he needs to keep his ass in the retirement home.
Did he really?
I mean, seriously. He tweeted to,
what though? I have to tell you, it's interesting though. Do you realize he actually had decent numbers last year? He had 28 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, and it's we acted like he was
except for wins and losses, Mark.
Yeah. Well, the rest of the team did kind of stink.
Yeah. Well, he's packaging himself with Devontae Adams. So
right now, would you take him if Devontae Adams came with him?
No, I wouldn't take him.
Because basically what you're saying then is you think he would do nothing more than what Russell Wilson did this year.
Yeah, I think he sets you back another 2 years. It doesn't make sense for him to learn the offense. I think he'll be a headache in the locker room, and I think Mike Lawrence says it right. Aaron Rodgers is a has-been, and I think he needs to hit the retirement wagon so he can make his way to the Hall of Fame.
He's eventually. 1-5 in NFC Championship games.
It's pretty bad, isn't it?
But he's 1-0 in Super Bowls, and he beat us, so that hurts.
That was his 1 year.
Hey, we would be remiss if we didn't mention that our down the turnpike team, the Philadelphia Eagles, had a parade. You got any thoughts on the parade? Did you want to mention? The only thing I want to mention is why the hell are they throwing beer cans at Jeffrey Lurie? Somebody please explain that to me.
Well, it was Howie Roseman that got hit in the head.
Roseman, that's right.
Got a gash.
That's right. And he said something like, I bleed for Philadelphia or something like that.
Right. I bleed for this city.
Yeah, that's what he said. I bleed for the city. Right. Any other thoughts other than that?
No, not really.
That kind of says it all, doesn't it?
The parades are, the parade was fun. To be honest, there's never going to be a better parade than the first parade because Jason Kelsey gave the ultimate speech at the first parade. And after that speech, it's nobody really comes close. But it was a heck of a year. I mean, Probably the most enjoyable playoff run I can remember as an Eagles fan.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat a Super Bowl win like that, where basically, you know that there's nothing went wrong in the game, and you were never at doubt for losing it. That's fantastic when that happmes.
Yeah,
sure.
It was great. You know, what's kind of funny is so now that the Eagles won, they're playing a lot of, previous Eagles, games. And I watched like the fourth quarter of the Foles Super Bowl when they took down Brady. And I mean, right, I'm looking at that team and I'm comparing it to this team, and I'm like, how in the world did they win?
Yeah.
I mean, they're throwing the ball to like Torrey Holt and like Nelson Aguilar. I'm like, with a backup quarterback. I'm like, how in the world did this happen?
Yeah.
This was a miracle.
Yeah. I look back to that 2009 Pittsburgh Penguins team when they beat Detroit Red Wings, and they had no business beating that team, yet they did.
Was that the one they were down 3-1 in that one?
Yep. They came back. Yeah.
Right. And you're like, there's no way they're going to win 3 out of 4.
And Fleury got smoked in game 5 too.
Yeah. And but after that, they put the pedal to the metal. So yeah, it happens. That's the way sports is. Hey, thanks for listening to Sports Porch. We got a couple more segments left here. I'm bypassing this baseball stuff unless you guys absolutely have something that you want to talk about. I'm just not ready to talk Buccos. You guys got anything, Scott? I know you got your hat on. Is there anything?
I just have to say it's the most ridiculously underwhelming offseason for a ridiculously underwhelming owner that's just absolutely pathetic and he's not even worth the time of day to own this franchise in the history that it has. It's absolutely sad.
Right. They're trying to convince us that Tommy Pham is an exciting signing.
I mean, come on. I mean, why didn't they just
Adam Frazier's back, right?
Why didn't they just keep Dela Cruz? I mean, Dela Cruz, he stunk after the trade deadline, but he has more upside than Tommy Pham does. He's 10 years younger. It's just, this is a joke.
I did look through the available free agents just in case you wanted to know. Rowdy Tellez is still out there.
Didn't they sign another first baseman?
Yeah, they did. I think they did.
Yeah.
Oh, that was my joke about surgery today that they reported, because Horwitz, who they signed from Cleveland, had to have wrist surgery. He's not even going to be available to start the season, and God only knows it's a chronic wrist issue. Come on, man.
Hey, Chris Chada says he wants to bring back Rowdy. So we got one Rowdy fan still out there.
I mean, Rowdy actually hit the ball the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, he started off terrible, and then he did do it. Mike's ready to talk about some USA hockey. How about it? Let's jump right to the Four Nations.
Up 1-0 in the first period.
Yeah, did you see who scored? Kreider scored 40 seconds in, and he's filling in for Austin Matthews. That's the only reason he's playing.
Yeah, and Kreider shouldn't even be on the team, quite frankly. I mean, how Kreider's on the team and Brian Rust isn't is a shame.
Well, because you know why? Because Torch is there. Torch wanted Kreider, so he got him. I think it was like, you get a guy, I get a guy. You get a guy, I get a guy. So I think that's how the picking went.
Hey guys,
Sully and
Canada beat Finland in regulation. Does that mean that they've qualified for the final?
It does.
Okay, so we'll be USA, Canada.
More importantly, that game with 8 minutes left, that game was 4-0.
4-0, yeah.
Ended up 5-3.
Yeah, and did you see they scored 3 goals? They
scored 2 goals.
They scored 3 goals in like a minute and a half against Canada.
Yeah,
and they started to shit bricks. But Sid got the empty net soon after that. Did you see he ran over Mikael Granlund at center ice, took the puck and put it right in the net. It was classic Sid. I love it. I do. I love this tournament, and I'll tell you why. One, it's so much fun to watch the best talent play against the best talent. Now, I know Russia's not out there. I wish they were out there too, but I always get this wrong, but the IIHF has, basically banned Russian teams from being able to play on the international stage. And the NHL is basically saying, okay, we'll comply with that. And so that's why that's not happening. But I think it's been great hockey. What do you say, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been the best hockey. I don't know since, it's been incredible. The speed of it, and best on best. For anybody out there that subscribes or ever reads The Athletic had a really good piece about the various reasons why we haven't had best on best in the last 10 years. But the quality of the hockey's been ridiculous. It's been fast. It's been crisp. The passing and the offensive play and the skill. Yeah. Aside from the horse shit that happened, that happened at the beginning of USA Canada. I mean, God, I can't wait till we get to the Olympics, because it won't happen in the Olympics because they'll get tossed out of the game.
Right.
That was just absolute stupid.
Well, you know what that was. Come on. They're giving the Canadian fans exactly what they want. They wanted a show. They loved to see the fighting. It got the crowd into the game. And then soon after that, McDavid comes right down the middle, skating 23 miles per hour, and he roofs that backhander. That was an excellent goal. That was just some incredible talent.
What was better was when, Charlie McAvoy almost sent McDavid into the third row.
Yeah. Well, how did you like that hit he had on Sid? I wasn't liking that too much.
I thought it was beautiful. I wish he would have hit him 3 more times while he was down on the ice.
Oh, by the way, McAvoy's out for the game because he's not feeling too good after all that hitting, I guess. Either that or Sully gave him the night off because he wanted to spend time with his daughter.
Yeah.
Did you know that, Mark? Charlie McAvoy married Sully's daughter.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, guys, I was very shocked at what happened at the beginning of the USA Canada game.
Yeah, that was shocking.
When I was talking to Steve the week before, I was like, what do you think? I mean, there's not going to be any hitting, right? And you were like, no, they're gonna go at it pretty hard.
I didn't expect that, though. Nobody expected 3 fights in 9 seconds.
Yeah. Well, you know what's the other thing too? I mean, and not to get political here, but I think that that's an aspect of this. The whole Canadian tariff thing. And they're now booing the American national anthem.
It's enormous. It's an enormous part of it,
Right.
But,
so they're like, they're hating America right
now. They're booing the anthem. I mean, if they want to boo the guy in the White House, like, go ahead, do that. If you boo the anthem, you're booing everybody. I mean, it's just, and Canada needs to be careful not to step on the golden goose, because the reason why they can have a 20,000 seat arena in Bell Center is because of how hockey has grown in America. You know what I mean? I mean, the bottom line, guys, is, do you guys realize that the GDP of New York City is more than Canada? The GDP of New York City. Okay. Set aside the fact that Texas, California, I mean, New York State, they all have GDP. I mean, seriously, like, I think the 51st state thing is just stupid, but
ridiculous,
like, his reaction is stupid as well, And
well, it's stupid if they want it to be Canada. It should be Greenland.
The game is grown. And Canada couldn't keep teams there. I mean, just look at Quebec, look at Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I mean, and these old time traditionalists, the same people that are cheering the fighting, they want them to continue dominating international hockey. And the fact of the matter is now, the biggest U.S. star is from the Sun Belt. I mean, like, did we think that was conceivable 20 or 30 years ago, Steve? That, like,
no, somebody coming out of Arizona. Yeah,
exactly.
Ridiculous.
Like, the game has grown, and they should be excited about it.
Well, I mean, even guys coming from Pittsburgh, JT Miller and Vinny Trocheck. I mean,
exactly.
Pittsburgh guys playing hockey. I mean, of course, that's because we've had such great mentors here in Lemieux and Crosby over the past 30 years, and that's really increased the sport here in Pittsburgh. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I saw something where it was like, clearly in the Big Six era, it was all Canadians. There were like two USA players. And then in 67, when the next 6 came, it started to grow a little bit, but literally it was still only like 350 to like
It
40 or something like that.
It
wasn't
always
until
true.
about the 2000s where it started to come up, where I think now it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 230 NHL players from the USA, and it's like 320 or 340 from Canada. So
Yep.
yeah, it's the balance is definitely it's not equalizing, because let's face it, Canada still runs the NHL. Everybody in the upper echelons of the management are mostly Canadians, and I'm okay with that, because the game did begin in Canada. Maybe we're pilfering a little bit, but I also agree with you that the fighting is ridiculous. I hated to see that. I understand why they did it, but it's not necessary for the game. It's only a sideshow now, and you only do it for a source of entertainment or to get the crowd into the game. But even that only lasts a few minutes. I mean, it doesn't last much longer than that.
Yeah, I think for me, especially having lived in Minnesota for as long as I did, the game, even when I moved to Minnesota, it was still about the 3 M's: Minnesota, Massachusetts, and Michigan. And now, now there's so much more out there. It's ridiculous. You see kids coming from all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
The one other thing that's real important to knock down is, for the whining about they didn't have Cale Makar in the game. I mean,
right.
Give me a break. The United States didn't have Quinn Hughes. Miro Heiskanen, who's a top 5 defenseman in the NHL, was out of the game.
Couldn't play for the Finns the whole tournament. Yeah.
So, that's part of it. So I don't want to hear this Cal Makar nonsense. And
and it was an illness too. It wasn't like he was hurt. I mean, he was just sick. I mean, what are you going to do about that? That happens all the time. It's not like he was injured or he got hurt. I mean, I agree with you. But hey, Makar will be playing Thursday night against the USA. We'll see what happens, right?
And in terms of value to his team, I would actually argue that Miro Heiskanen is a much bigger deal, because to your point, the Finns only have 50 guys in the NHL,
right?
And so next year we're gonna see the Olympics, and then they're gonna have in 2 years the World Cup of Hockey. So I think the good news there, Steve and Mark, is that they'll have the best players from those countries, because the one thing that sucks about this tournament is it is limited to NHLers.
Right.
My guess is the Finns would be a lot more competitive if they could bring guys over from Europe.
I agree with you.
Playing in North America.
I agree with you, because the Finns in Sweden too, they play a game where they play better as a group. And if you've got a group that can play together, as opposed to maybe having great talent, we've seen it before. Like it yields great hockey. And sometimes those teams can beat the better talented teams because they play such a great structured game. They know where everybody is on the ice. They got good passing, and they can get it past the goalie, honestly, when it comes down to it.
And I'll also look forward to seeing the Americans chase the Europeans around on Olympic ice too, because I think it'll be a lot different, for the Americans and Canadians playing on a bigger sheet.
That is a big advantage for teams that have some speed. Well, you and I were watching the other night when we were watching Michigan play against Minnesota. You can tell the ice is just so much bigger on that bigger sheet of ice, and you just can't run into people because you're going to be out of position if you miss, and it's going to cause a 2-on-1 the other way or worse. So yeah, I agree. So who do you like? Who do you like in the Thursday game? You got USA, Canada, the rematch, winner takes all. Mark, what do you think?
Well, I mean, look, the bottom line is it's a coin flip. Right. I mean, you basically have two all-star teams playing against each other.
Right.
Granted, the Canadian all-star team is a little better, but in any hockey game, in any one game winner takes all, the flow of the game can dictate everything. I mean, if you look at the last game, it was the USA having a lead. They were able to play, a really good defensive game with the lead and then put in an empty netter to finish it off.
Right.
Now, if they're playing from behind, that they're not going to be able to do that. Right. So it'll be interesting. I'll say playing in Boston, let's give it to USA.
How about you, Scotty? Who do you
like?
I
just, for me, and this, I'm not breaking ground saying this. I mean, Jordan Bennington is not Connor Hellebuck.
True.
And how in the hell, sorry, pun intended, that Hellebuck wasn't one of the 3 stars the other night is just freaking beyond.
I know. That was crazy.
He was ridiculously good.
Yeah.
He hasn't lived up to his potential in big games. So, that's a factor. I mean, if he gives up a soft one and God forbid 2 softies early, they could be in trouble. But, the other issue is that the U.S. is so much deeper. And I'll just point to Dylan Larkin playing on the 3rd line or on the 4th line. I mean, Dylan Larkin was lights out in that game. He was a freaking pest when he was out there. They couldn't keep up with him. And so, the Canadians may have a better top line, if especially they load up McDavid with McKinnon.
Right.
But they're not nearly as deep. Our 3rd and 4th line is light years better than their 3rd and 4th line.
Right. I agree with you. I think it would come down to goaltending though. And I like Hellebuck much better. And honestly, you know what? If Hellebuck gets shelled early, they can bring in Ottinger. I mean, come on. I mean, either of those guys, I think if either of those goalies were on Canada's team, I would take Canada. But I just don't like Bennington. I don't think he's a good goalie, but he could steal a game, but he hasn't this year, and he's not played well for St. Louis. So I'm going to give the advantage to Canada when it comes to scoring, but I'm going to give the advantage to our wall stopper, and I think it's going to be a 3-2, 4-3 final. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a really good game. I actually hope it goes to overtime, but that's the way I feel about it.
I hope the U.S. wins 7-1, and I hope Sidney Crosby gets checked into the 2nd row.
Oh man,
why are you saying this?
I don't like that
because he's a Canadian. Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
I get it. I understand where you're going.
You don't want him to get hurt.
I don't want him to get hurt. No, I mean, he's already hurt. He's already hurt.
If there's a year for him to get hurt, it would be this year. But we'll talk about the Penguins at a later date. I wouldn't actually mind that this year. They're not going anywhere, and we all know that about the Pengs. All right. Well, Mark, guess what? It is that time, and I need you to tell our fans exactly what we are watching means.
Well, what we are watching means this is our way of giving back to you, our audience, our viewers, our listeners. We're here to help you. We're here to help you get through those difficult decisions of what to watch, right? There's so many things you can choose from. There's Netflix, there's Apple TV Plus, there's Hulu, there's Max, there's Freebie, there's Tubi, there's Ubi, there's Booby, there's Ubi.
There's
right?
the Big Ten Network.
Big Ten Network.
Sure, the Big Ten Network. That's a big one. So there's so much out there. And you know what? Instead of just sitting there and, flipping through and watching trailer after trailer and then just deciding, nah, not this one, nah, not this one. And then before you know it, you spend 45 minutes and it's time to go to bed. What we're going to do is we're going to tell you if something we watch is worth watching or if something worth watched is not worth your time. All you have to do is listen to us. No more surfing.
No more surfing, indeed. And I'm going to start this one out. Okay. Scotty didn't bring us one, so if you got something you want to bring up later, I don't have a graphic for it, but Scott, if there's something you want to bring up after me, just let me know and I'll bring you in. But here's what I watched just the other day: Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Is that a movie?
It is a movie. Okay. Are you familiar with the Planet of the Apes?
I am. I've come across it once or twice in my 54 years.
Have you seen the movies, The Planet of the Apes?
I've seen some of them. I will tell you, I don't rush out and go see them, but the few times that I have, and I did see one, I've definitely seen one within the last 5 years. Yeah. And it was surprisingly very, very good.
Yeah, the one that was recent that I liked was Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
I think that's the one I saw.
I thought that was really well done. And honestly, the movie that I love the most is just the first Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston. I think that is just a great movie. And I think the trilogy, the original trilogy, is really, really well done.
Is that people eating people?
People eating people. No. That's Soylent Green. This is Apes take over the world. Come on, Scott. With Statue of Liberty sticking out of the sand. You remember.
Right.
This is not that movie. This movie was absolutely horrible. I do not recommend it. I wanted to watch it. Here's why. I wanted to watch it because I'm like, this is one that I haven't watched yet, and I've seen most of the other ones. I just want to see what this is about. Not only was it terrible, it was 2 hours and 20 minutes of terrible.
Oh my God.
And I had to sit through the whole thing.
This is why I don't watch movies.
And you know what? I was hoping like, okay, this is going to get better. But literally the first hour, maybe the first hour and 15 minutes is just the apes. There's no humans involved. And, they're talking and it's, computer graphic stuff. And but it was still so terrible. The dialogue was horrible. It wasn't like they were acting, and it's apes, right? It was so terrible. I do not recommend this. So if you like the trilogy, I think this is one of those where it doesn't really further the story, because this takes place. This story takes place after the apes have been in charge on the earth for a long time. And I guess there are other apes that are battling them, and they don't even know like humans still exist. And then they find this colony, and it's just horrible. It's just absolutely horrible. The way they find everybody is just cliche. And of course the humans are still the terrible people at the end, and everybody kind of goes their own way, and there's no resolve to anything. So I would say 2 thumbs down to the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. If you like the series, do not watch this movie. All right, Mark.
And viewers, you're welcome.
You're welcome. I just saved you 2 hours and 24 minutes of your life.
That's good stuff.
Before I get to Mark,
Yeah.
Scott, is there something you would like to talk about, or are you out?
Yeah, I'll just stick with hockey. And I mentioned the Big Ten Network. All joking aside, anybody who likes hockey, even if you've never watched a college game, you can get the Big Ten Network. Steve and I were texting and watching Michigan University of Minnesota game that was fantastic, and it was really cool for me because my son has some former teammates and former guys that he played against playing on both of those teams. It's hockey tournament time.
Frozen Four.
Well, this is leading up to the conference tournaments, Mark. Before you get to the NCAAs. So the tournaments actually the tournaments leading up to the NCAA tournament, there's probably more passion in the rivals. So you have the Big Ten, and then the NCHA is the other one that's really good with some Minnesota teams and teams from around the country. And to the comments earlier about how hockey's grown in the U.S., you see some teams like Arizona State, has a really good team this year, which is just, says something incredible about the growth.
Ohio State, I guess, is playing really well too, which is
Ohio State's really good also.
Yeah. I concur. I don't watch very many college hockey games, and Scott said turn it on. The hockey is actually very good, and definitely was an excellent game to watch, that Big Ten game. Okay, Mark, you're up. Here is the show Mark Schwab is watching.
Night Agent, season 2.
My wife's watching this.
Yeah. So I completed season 2, and it was good. I will say this. I think season 1 was better. Season 2.
Where can we find Night Agent?
Oh, it's on Netflix.
Netflix. Okay. Netflix. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's 2 seasons. Each season, I believe, is 10 episodes. And they're maybe 45, 50 minutes. So you can get through it fairly quickly.
What's the most you watch in one night, Mark, or one sitting?
Maybe 2. Maybe 2. Yeah. I would say the first season was beginning to end completely great. The second season I was unsure in the beginning, like episodes 1, 2, and 3. I was kind of like, I don't know. It seems like we're just, we're chasing things, and what's this really even about? But then once you got to about the 4th episode, like episodes 4 through 10, were then again really good. So I would say if you like, the spy game, espionage game.
I do. I like that.
Basically it's it's like a off the books agency, so to speak. Where it's
they call them knocks in the government, Mark.
Is that what they call them?
Ooh.
Yeah, you're on non-official cover.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Non-official cover. Okay, yeah,
I
knocks.
like it.
Yeah, so it's fun. It's fun. Now it's nothing that is like exceptional. It's not anything like where you're gonna say, boy, there was a lot of like serious intelligence put into this, and
Yeah.
people are gonna win awards, but it's just plain fun.
Is it a different plot line every season, or is it kind of
each season was a different. The season 1 and season 2 were different plot lines. Yes.
So, but I should go back and watch season 1 before I watch season 2.
Yeah, you have to watch season 1 before 2.
Yeah, there's a lot of carryover.
Yeah. Well, because you basically you get to know the 2 main characters are the same in season 1 and season 2.
Gotcha.
So it's like you can't really just like start out not knowing who these people are.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. Mark Schwab, 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up.
The second season of
Night
what is
Agent.
that called again? Night Agent. And you can find that on Netflix. And guess what that means? We made it to the end. Boys, thank you for joining us on the porch.
I heard a little biscuit in there a second ago.
I did. I hit the wrong button.
Made me hungry.
I'm not the technical director. What can I say? But, hey, we made it to the end. Thanks for joining us on another week. Hey, we'll be back next week. Maybe the technical director will join us. Maybe
the technical director will get out of bed.
I don't know. Maybe he will or maybe he won't, but
he's fighting the depression.
We'll see you next week. Any final words, boys? A little jablonks?
Jablonks.
Scott, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Let's go USA.
All right.
Thanks for watching,
everybody
Chris.
have a good week. We'll see you next week. See you.